Good morning. It's another day, and it's our midweek edition of Summit. My name is Jumoke Michaels. Thanks for joining us again. Banji, good morning.
Jumoke, good morning. My name is Banji Busari. You're welcome.
All right. So, the Nigerian Broadcasting Regulator on Friday announced it will revoke licenses of 52 media organizations over unpaid fees. And that announcement was made by the DG of the Nigerian Broadcast Corporation, Malam Balarebe Ilela. He announced this in Abuja. And since then, there's been so many reactions, so many counter reactions to that announcement. And we are part of the media, so it concerns us, and this is a very dear topic to our hearts this morning. And we're going to be discussing that with our guest today, Mr. Ademola Adegoke, who's a public affairs analyst. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You're welcome.
It's our pleasure to have you.
Nice being with you once again.
You're welcome. To discuss this very passionate topic.
Yeah.
Well, it's about us. Today we are discussing our issues. Let's look at it this way. It's not strange. I'm sure I'm saying that it's not the first time that NBC would actually resort to revocation of licenses. But what's unprecedented is the fact that the whole sum, 52 or 53, would actually get the axe in one day. And it came to a lot of people as a rude shock. Why would you ask 53 in one day? What would have led to that? So minutes were being read into it, and people were actually outraged that this cannot happen, especially in democracy. So is this outrage? Let's start this way.
Okay.
Is it born out of sentiments or patriotism, or what could have been the reason why there was such outrage?
For me, as a practitioner and someone whose practice, directly or indirectly, as a communication and media consultant, will be affected, by whatever happens in the media space. I want to say that for me, I think the reaction has been more of sentiment than unbiased analysis. You understand? That is the way I am seeing it, because we need to raise some questions. We need to raise some questions. One, I will answer the question that has to do with number, but let's ask some questions. As the NBC acted ultra-vires, that it's beyond its powers, as it does the law, back the NBC in the action it has taken? We need to answer that. Then the media stations in question, are they in the breach of NBC regulation or not? We also need to answer that. Then we can also raise the question, could NBC have exercised some discretion in the application of its rules? We also need to answer that. Then what, is the effect, of NBC action on, the media industry? We also need to, look at all these issues. As you see, whoever that is conversant with the NBC Act, I raised the question: has NBC acted ultra-vires? Has it acted beyond its powers granted to it by the law? And my answer to that is no. The NBC is backed by law as the industry regulator of the broadcast industry, to grant, licenses, operational licenses to media outlets. Section 9 of the NBC Act is so clear about that it is empowered, to grant licenses to media houses. Then if you go to Section 12 of the same NBC Act, it also clearly states that the licenses are subject to terms and regulations as listed in the 3rd schedule of the Act. And what do you have in the 3rd schedule? If you go to paragraph 8A of the 3rd schedule, you now see that it is stated that the NBC may revoke licenses, where prescribed dues have not been paid. You understand? It is well stated. So those that are reacting, they need to look at the NBC Act before reacting. And you see, I want to say something. The fact that we've been doing things, in a particular way, and maybe the regulator is looking, the other way, does not mean that that is the norm. Sometimes, when abnormality, becomes so consistent, it now, wears the toga of normalcy. And we want to see that that is the way it is done. But you see, there are so many things that we do here that it's only here that you can do it. And I want to ask you, Banji and Jumoke, that if you, as an individual, you know that, your vehicle, you need to renew your vehicle license, your driving license, you need to renew it for you to be on the road. You understand? Because there is a law that says that when your vehicle papers are due, you can't, you cannot drive. So if you understand, then I think corporate entities too should know that, whatever license that has been granted to them is not granted ad infinitum. You understand? No license is granted ad infinitum. In fact, licenses usually have, a lifespan. Either we say a year, it could even be monthly, it could be so. Then those licenses are supposed to be renewed. And when you have not, done the needful by way of renewing your license, and the regulator now does what it is supposed to do. I refer to the NBC Act. You understand? Even though, the paragraph 8 of the 3rd schedule of the NBC Act that I refer to said the NBC may. You understand? So you want to look at it as maybe it is discretionary. But you also, if you ask lawyers, they will tell you that there have been judicial pronouncements that where the exercise of a power is coupled, with duty on the side of the person that is to exercise it, the word may becomes imperative. That is, it becomes more obligatory than discretionary. And this is what has happened. You understand that NBC has done. So for me, I do not know the ground on which I believe that, our colleagues, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, Radio, Television and Theatre Arts Workers Union, NUJ, and all that, they are crying, they are crying blue mother, as if, you understand, NBC has done what is, and people are reading witch hunting into this, that maybe there is witch hunting. Because there
was no place for warning.
Wait, I will come to that. I will come to,
like I'm going to come in and shut you down.
I will come to all of those. I don't know whether you have looked at it. So I don't know. For me, this is the way I am reading at it. I am looking at it. Of the 53 stations that you have mentioned, yes, have you noticed that 17 out of them, 20 actually, not less than 20 are state-owned. You understand? And 17 out of them, are, stations belonging to APC, states. Osun, Niger, Kogi, Kwara, Zamfara, Kaduna, and the rest of the only 3. I've looked at the list. Only 3 are of PDP. Sokoto, Rivers, Bayelsa. Those are the ones, that I could see are, So why are we now crying blue mother? You understand? in this whole thing. So if it is witch hunting, then probably the government-owned stations belonging to APC states will have been left off the hook. So when we look at it, so for me, I think that we need to learn to do things the proper way. When we come to the issue of, that Jumoke raised about maybe warnings and all that, I am not a subscriber to a penal system that believes in capital punishment for all offenses. You understand? That will be a very, very harsh, inhuman, so to speak, penal system. If you have a penal system that says that every offense, whether you even commit a driving offense, the next thing is capital punishment. So we look at it that for this offense, you understand, revocation of license is almost like a capital punishment. You understand? Because you are taking the media outlet out of operation, and it's like death. It's like corporate death, for the organization. So we now can only ask, you understand, as NBC issued the necessary warning, you understand, to the organization. But you will also see that in the notice that NBC gave, in the announcement that NBC gave, they also notified some other stations that they are giving them a month, you understand, to renew their license. Means also otherwise more will come. So I do not know what we can be asking. The question we may be asking here is, did NBC do the needful by way of warning, by way of alert to the affected organizations that at so time, if you do not renew your license, we will yank you off, the airspace. So that is the question that I feel we can be looking at. But for us to, apply only, then we can also, we know that people are employed, in these stations. So the implication, I talked about the implication. So it then means that, when you do that, wholesale, the way you have done it, you are throwing so many people out of job. So maybe NBC could temper, justice with mercy. We can only, for me, you understand, we can only plead, you understand that, because of the socioeconomic implications of your action. Please, let's have some caution here. So that is my own view, but that is not to make NBC, the villain that so many of our practitioners are trying to.
Yes, let's look at the implication. You have actually spoken about the justification largely. Let's look at the implication. Now, preparatory to this threat, you recall that a couple of years back, the media houses, particularly the private ones, sounded a note of warning, or kind of preparing Nigerians' minds to what may actually happen to the industry. Now, the industry was actually undergoing serious challenges of patronage arising from the economic developments in the country. Now, this industry as a whole is also paying its own, let me say, fair share, or probably pay more than its fair share of the challenges that the economy is actually going through. Of course. Now, are you surprised that the media houses, the leading ones amongst them, the AIT, the MITV, the STVs, and others, that have been in existence for close to 3 decades now, and have not had a case of revocation once? Does it occur to you that this may have all resulted from the comatose economy that we are going through?
You see, no industry operates in isolation of the socio-economic environment in which it exists. No industry. You will discover that the comatose nature the Nigerian economy presently is not just for the media industry alone. I know you've been monitoring what has been going on in the aviation industry. You understand? They
are threatening to
shut down. You understand? And it is because, you see, the environment, the socio-economic environment is becoming more and more stifling and muzzling, you understand, for the organizations. Because you ask yourself, how much was a liter of aviation fuel? You know, aviation fuel just a year ago. How much is a liter of aviation fuel today? And let's look at the media industry. You discover that, you know, power is one very, very vital input. You understand? Yeah. Electricity power is a vital input in the media, especially in the broadcast industry, you know. So and you discovered, and look at and so most stations, you know, run on generators, diesel operated generators. And now you ask, how much is a liter of diesel as at last year? How much is a liter of diesel this year? And you expect a station, because the stations, they want to remain relevant, you understand? So they cannot say because there is no power and then they will not be on here. If you are not on here, you lose, you know, advertising patronage. So all this, you know, have increased the overhead cost of stations, and that may account for the reason why so many organizations are, you know, in default of NBC regulation as it affects payment of renewal of license. But that is not also to say that...
Before you actually conclude on that, let me also remind you that it is a couple of years ago, it got so bad when some of them were struggling to survive. It got so bad that they made an application to the Minister of Information that they needed a bailout to be able to continue service, knowing fully well that this is an industry that has a lot of implications on security and the unity of the nation. So they asked for a bailout to be able to survive the economic woes. So this coming to, the revocation threat is like the situation has come to a head, and maybe this will provide an opportunity for the NBC, that's the regulator, and the practitioners to come together to probably set new guidelines for operations. And
you see,
what do you think?
Yes, of course. You see, you know, I have spoken at length on the moral ground on which NBC stands, as far as you know, on the legal ground on which it stands on this. You know, when you talk of the legal aspect, NBC is on a solid ground as far as I am concerned. But even though one's knowledge of legal philosophy also makes one know that legal justice does not translate to moral justice. You understand? And moral justice, you understand, does not even translate to also divine justice. You understand? For those who believe in that. You understand? There is, you know, legal justice, there is social or moral justice, then there is the divine justice. Those are the, you know, three layers of justice that you can have. As far as NBC is concerned, legally speaking, for me, you know, it is backed by law to do what it has done. But you now look at your own, you know, peculiar socio-economic environment. You understand? And you say, what can we do? If, you know, like you have said, we have as many as 53 stations in default, you understand, then it then means that probably something is wrong with the industry. So, and the NBC, one expects that it is not just to play the policeman in the industry. As the regulator, you also want to see what you do to develop the industry. And so this is where, you know, the roundtable session now comes in. That, okay, let us see, why are you in default? Perhaps maybe it also calls for reappraisal of even the dues, you understand, so that so many media outlets are not stifled out of existence. So I subscribe to that. It's something that we can do. But I also want to say that, you see, while we look at that, there are some stations that, you know, genuinely may be, you know, doing their best, you know, to stay afloat. But we can also not, we are practitioners, you understand, and we cannot rule out the fact that some stations too, you understand, they are also not doing what they are supposed to do, you know, to attract, you know, large audience base and advertising patronage. So it also may be, you know, a clarion call to our colleagues or media, you know, entrepreneurs to also up their, you know, game in terms of, you know, their own investment into the sector. If you say you have, you know, you don't establish, you know, the media, you are practitioners, and you know that it's more, yes, more like a social service, you understand, but then you also want to make some, you want, because if you don't make profit, you know, revenue, you won't, how do you sustain yourself? So, and the only way to do that is the kind of input into which you make into the system. Some media entrepreneurs too, they have, you know, relaxed so much that, you know, they have also, and they have lost both audience base and, you know, advertising patronage. So maybe, like we have said, it calls for a total reappraisal, both on the part of the owners and even the NBC.
All right, please, let's look at the this administration. You know, when it comes to issues of the media, there's a kind of lack of trust between this administration and the people. Let me include NBC too, because from people's perspective, it's like this administration has dominated the NBC, because okay, let's look at some examples. Like during the NSAS, some media houses were fined for transmitting that protest live, like Channels AIT, and I think one or two radio stations were fined for live transmission of that protest. I remember also from the National Assembly or the Presidential Villa, some media houses were delisted from reporting live from the villa. Okay. And you know, recently also one Trust TV too was also fined for showing a documentary. So you see that there's been so many things that's happened to show that we can't trust these people.
You see, that's why that's
why, even though you have justified NBC, you know,
yes. There may be that, you know, trust gap, you know, between the government and the people, and, you know, including the media. But you see, I have also said that, you know, sentiments apart, when issues like this, when they arise, we look at them holistically. You understand? We don't focus on, oh, maybe, for example, I've given you the example that in this particular instance now, there, you know, there are not less than 20 government-owned stations in it. And if it had been just, you know, PDP states, they'll say, oh, this is, you know, we want it. But 17 of APC-controlled states media stations are in that list. So it then means that maybe, yes, there might have been some missteps. You understand? There might have been some missteps in the past, you know, that not only NBC, there was a time, okay, you know, you even like trust. Trust has always had issue with this present administration. You know, there was a time that the newspaper was sealed because it was alleged to have it actually did, reported a military operation. It's kind of leaked military operation, which they frowned at. But you see, like practitioners that we are in the media and communication space, we also need to know that, there are ethical rules and standards that we need to keep to. You understand? In these days of citizen journalism, those that are not trained can do anything. You understand? All you just need is to pick your phone, you broadcast, and social media journalists. Social media. So that's for them. For those of us who know, the ethical rules and and expectations that the system requires of us, then we cannot do things anyhow. For example, if truly you understand, for example, like the issue of NSAS, well, I know that a media station has to balance, there must be a balance. You must strike a balance between your duty to report, what is happening to the people, and, maintenance of peace, and order, in the society. If you want to report and you say, okay, you want to report things as they are happening, and there are things that they are of incendiary nature, things that could cause, that could, inflame the system, that could inflame the polity, even though it's your right, you also, you will have run foul, you use some discretion. So that is why sometimes, when we are not in government, and but you discover that sometimes when some of our colleagues, when they get to government and the way they do, now say, so this man, we knew what you were doing, what you were saying when you were outside. Now you've gone. It is because probably, you understand, they now see things in a different perspective. So that is not to justify whatever government is doing that is right, but then we need to strike a balance. We need to know that, yes, we have a duty, we have a duty to, that social duty to report what is happening to the people, but at the same time, we have to balance it with, our duty to ensure that peace, orderliness, are maintained in the society.
You might get just a second.
Okay.
If we remove 53, if the government, sorry, there has been an extension. It was supposed to be 2 days ago, but there has been an extension. But in the event that the NBC goes ahead with its threat, and 53 stations are out of circulation, won't that give room to more fake news and citizen journalism and all that? What's your one word?
Yes, surely it will, but I do not want our, like I've said, if anybody will be affected, I will also be affected, because this is the, this is where I get my whatever little what is where one gets one is able to put some food on the table from the media space. So one will be affected, but then I also want to plead, that we need to do things the right way. Yes, we know that ours is a very peculiar situation, our socioeconomic situation, places some strains on us, maybe more than it will have been the case elsewhere. But then we still need to see how things are done so that we do not throw caution to the winds.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us for this discussion and for throwing a lot of light on it. So let's just play the balance and make sure that things are done very well. Thank you, sir.
Okay.